Norman Lear was the first person that got me. I mean, I was playing jacks with his daughter. Norman says to my dad, you know, this kid is really funny. My dad said, what, that kid? That kid, he's a sullen. He sits quiet. He doesn't, you know, he's not funny.
Norman Lear was the first person who truly saw something in me, and that moment never faded. I was just a kid on the floor playing jacks with his daughter, not trying to be funny or impress anyone. Norman glanced up and told my dad, you know, this kid is really funny. My dad looked confused. What kid? He's serious. He sits quietly. He doesn't joke around. And right there, I learned something I'd spend decades relearning. People don't always see you. They see what they expect. One person mistakes stillness for emptiness. Another notices the pause and calls it timing. That day wasn't about punchlines. It was about perception, and perception is where power lives. For years after that, I dodged one question whenever interviews drifted toward All in the Family. I praised the writing and the cultural impact. I talked about what the show forced into America's living rooms, race, class, gender, authority, but I moved carefully around one name, Carroll O'Connor. On screen, we were locked in ideological warfare. Archie Bunker and Michael Meathead Stivic didn't simply argue, they collided. Off-screen, there was silence, and silence invites invention. Rumors hardened into truths. Ego clashes, buried resentment, hostility that never healed. The lack of explanation made it louder. When I finally spoke plainly, it rewrote the narrative. It didn't just change how people saw the man behind Archie Bunker. It forced me to confront myself. The first real collision between Carroll and me wasn't explosive. It was calculated. When I joined the show in 1971, I understood fast. This wasn't a comfortable set. It wasn't built for cozy chemistry. It was a pressure chamber. The show existed to provoke, not soften. Mike Stivic wasn't there to win debates. He was a counterweight, a moral battering ram. Every line I delivered was built to corner Archie, expose hypocrisy, and push confrontation until something cracked or something honest showed. By the time I arrived, Carroll was already battling Norman Lear over scripts, tone, and intent. He believed Archie could never drift into a lovable clown. If Archie became funny without consequence, the character would become dangerous. Archie wasn't a joke machine, he was a mirror, and mirrors only work when they're honest. That tension lived in rehearsals, in pauses, in how lines were delivered and redelivered with different weight. And I walked straight into it. Carroll didn't greet me with warmth. He watched me. During rehearsals, he studied how I handled pressure, what I did when the rhythm broke. Then he tested me. He altered timing on purpose. He held silences longer than written. He hit lines with unexpected force, throwing the scene off its comfortable tracks. It forced me to stop acting and start reacting. The insults came fast and sharp, delivered with such conviction that I sometimes wondered if the anger shut off when the cameras did. But the real confrontation wasn't yelling. Carroll didn't scream. He corrected quietly, directly, without drama. One day he told me something I never forgot. If you don't believe what you're saying, the audience will know before the laugh track. It wasn't cruelty, it was a standard, and it changed how I worked. Carroll didn't want agreement. What he demanded was resistance, real resistance that could stand toe-to-toe with Archie Bunker. Survival on that set didn't mean avoiding his intensity. It meant meeting his standard head-on, even when it burned. Then, as the years went on, something strange happened. The conflict between Archie and Mike started to feel routine, predictable. Archie barked insults. Mike fired back with moral certainty. The audience laughed and argued at home, but nothing moved. The fights became circular, loud without progression. And then came the storeroom episode. Archie and Mike trapped overnight in the back of Archie's bar. Liquor shows up, time stretches. What should have been another verbal boxing match slows into something heavier and riskier. What most viewers never realized is that the emotional core of that episode wasn't sitting on the page. Carroll had been carrying it privately for years. He understood something most performers never risk. Once you name the pain out loud, you can't put it back in the box. Carroll believed Archie wasn't meant to be explained away quickly. Archie was meant to sit with America, uncomfortable, unresolved, until viewers couldn't avoid what they were looking at. So when Mike finally asked, in genuine confusion, "I don't understand how you get to feel this way about people," Carroll recognized the opening. This wasn't politics. This was a human question. And for the first time, Archie didn't dodge it. He talked about his father, not with bitterness, but with loyalty. He framed the past as structure. Harsh discipline became guidance. Cruelty became love. In Archie's mind, it was proof someone cared. He explained it in simple, devastating logic. The man who taught him to play ball, who held his hand when he learned to walk, couldn't possibly be wrong about the world. If that man believed certain people were dangerous, Archie believed it too. To reject those lessons would feel like rejecting love itself. Carroll later put it in a phrase that stayed with me. The poison got into the system. Archie's prejudice wasn't random. It wasn't a choice made in adulthood. It was inherited, absorbed long before Archie had tools to question it. That wasn't an excuse. It was a diagnosis of how fear survives across generations. And in that storeroom, I changed my approach. Mike stopped pushing. He listened. I let Archie speak without interruption. And when Archie finally passed out, Mike covered him with a blanket. That action wasn't scripted. It wasn't sentimental. It was recognition. After that, Archie wasn't an enemy to defeat. He was a wounded man shaped by inherited fear. The shouting didn't disappear, but it wasn't hollow anymore. You could feel the set change in real time. The laughter didn't vanish, but it softened, like people realized they were watching something closer to truth than comedy. Between takes, nobody cracked jokes to break the mood. Carroll stayed in Archie's skin a little longer than usual, eyes distant, as if he'd opened a door he'd been holding shut for years. I remember thinking, this is the first time Archie has sounded lonely instead of loud. And that's what made it so powerful. Archie didn't suddenly become good. Mike didn't suddenly become right. The scene didn't hand the audience an easy answer. It showed how a person can be wrong and still be shaped by something real. That's the tightrope Carroll walked, revealing the source without excusing the damage. After that episode aired, people reacted in a different way. Some viewers wrote letters saying they'd never expected to feel sorry for Archie Bunker. Others were angry, like empathy was a betrayal. And I realized something uncomfortable. When you tell the truth well, it doesn't unite people. It exposes them. It forces them to decide what kind of human they're willing to recognize. If you're feeling this, hit like. It tells the algorithm this kind of story still matters. When the show ended in 1979, Carroll walked away carrying Archie Bunker on his back. The public couldn't separate the man from the character. Some accused him of racism. Others praised Archie as a hero. Nuance collapsed into applause or accusation. Off camera, Carroll was reserved, almost shy. He didn't love parties. He chose words carefully. He described Archie as a man who never smiled and never had anything kind to say, and he described bitterness like an inherited disease, not to excuse it, but to explain it. That distinction mattered to me, and it reshaped how I thought about storytelling. As I moved into directing, the influence showed up everywhere. I stopped revolving stories around winning arguments. I started asking what damage built the argument in the first place. Less villains, more wounded people. Less victory, more exposure. In Stand By Me, I explored how childhood wounds shape adulthood long after the bruises disappear. In A Few Good Men, I showed how authority teaches obedience before morality gets a chance to speak. That refusal to simplify came straight from watching Carroll embody ugliness without endorsing it. He taught me this: you don't lecture the audience into reflection. You let characters expose themselves honestly, and the audience does the judging. Despite decades of rumors, I've always been clear about one thing. We didn't fight off camera. We had enormous affection for each other. It just didn't look like Hollywood friendship. No posing, no headlines. Our bond lived in trust, restraint, and shared standards. The work came first. When Carroll died in 2001, I stayed quiet. I believed the work already said what mattered. But silence has a cost. It lets confusion survive, and confusion hardens into false narratives. Only with age did I understand that letting those misunderstandings linger felt wrong. So I finally said it with clarity. Carroll devoted his life to one of the most dangerous tasks an actor can take on, embodying hatred so honestly it couldn't be mistaken for virtue. He knew some viewers would cheer Archie instead of questioning him. He knew people would confuse the character with the man. He accepted that burden anyway, because exposing ugliness truthfully mattered more than being liked. "He was one of the kindest men I ever met," I said later. "People thought maybe Archie lived inside him. He didn't." That sentence carries decades of weight. The fear I felt on that set was never about conflict. It was about failing his standard. Was it honest or was it easy? Was it comfortable or was it true? Here's the truth, plainly. Carroll O'Connor carried America's ugliest character so others wouldn't have to. He absorbed the moral discomfort without becoming the man he portrayed. That distinction matters. If you want more stories like this, what it really costs to make culture-changing TV, subscribe now. And tell me in the comments, do you think Carroll O'Connor was misunderstood or understood too late? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.